You turn the key in the lock, you drop your heavy bags by the door, and, you let out this massive, exhausted exhale. You are finally home.
Oh, yeah. That is like the absolute best feeling in the world.
It really is. But what if while your body is sitting safely on the couch, your mind is still locked out in the cold rain, like frantically pacing the perimeter?
Wow. That's a pretty heavy image. But honestly, it's incredibly accurate for how a lot of us operate today.
Right. Today, we are exploring a 400-year-old text that claims we have essentially been evicted from our own minds. And more importantly, it provides the exact blueprint to break back in. I am so excited to welcome you to today's deep dive. Think of this as like a mental retreat from the chaos of your daily life.
Yeah, and we really need that retreat. We spent so much time and money optimizing our external environments for comfort, right?
No.
But we tolerate a level of internal chaos that we would just never accept in our physical living rooms.
Exactly. We wouldn't live in a house with a tornado inside it. But we live with our minds like that every day. So the source material for this deep dive is a really profound piece of spiritual poetry. It's a Shabad composed in the 16th century by Guru Arjan Dev Ji.
And for anyone who wants to look it up and follow along, you can find this specific text on page 678 of the Sikh scripture.
Yes, thank you for that. And what strikes me immediately about this text isn't just the words, but the way it's delivered. It isn't just written prose. It was composed in raag Dhanaasaree.
Which, I have to say, is a super crucial detail for understanding how this whole text operates.
Right, because a raag isn't just a melody.
Exactly. It's not just a tune. It is a highly specific musical framework designed to evoke and honestly to biologically induce a particular psychological state. Raag Dhanaasaree is traditionally performed in the afternoon.
Which is usually when I'm hitting my midday slump.
Yeah, exactly. It's historically associated with transition, winding down, or, like you said, that midday wave of anxiety. The sonic architecture of Dhanaasaree is known for bringing out a sense of profound devotion and grounded assurance.
So it literally acts as an auditory pattern interrupt for a stressed-out nervous system.
You nailed it. It's meant to physically calm the storm before the words even register.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text opens with this really striking invitation. It says, "The one who sent you has now recalled you. Return to your home now in peace and pleasure."
Yeah, recalled you. That's such an interesting translation.
It is. When I read the word recalled, I immediately thought of like a product recall. A manufacturer sends out a notice saying, "Hey, we found a glitch in the steering column. Bring the vehicle back to the factory."
I love that analogy. It's so fitting.
Right. It implies that the frantic, anxious way we operate in the modern world isn't our baseline. It's a malfunction. The creator's issuing a recall to restore us to factory settings. But here's my question for you. What does this peace and pleasure actually look like in practice? Is it just like sitting quietly in a dark room?
Well, what's fascinating here is the specific terminology used in the original language. We often conflate peace with anesthesia in the West, like tuning out or taking a long nap.
Yeah, putting on noise-canceling headphones and ignoring reality.
Exactly. But that feels like a retreat, not a solution. The text uses the word sahaj. And sahaj is definitely not a static, sleepy state. It is a dynamic, perfectly calibrated balance.
Dynamic balance. Okay, how does that work? It almost sounds like an oxymoron.
Think of a spinning top. Have you ever watched a top when it's first thrown or when it starts to lose its momentum?
Oh, yeah. It wobbles violently all over the table.
Right. It's erratic. But when a top is spinning at its absolute optimal velocity, standing perfectly upright, what does it look like?
It looks completely still, like it's not even moving.
Exactly. It almost looks entirely motionless. It's perfectly centered precisely because of the massive amount of energy involved. That is sahaj.
Wow. Okay, so it's an unshakable inner equilibrium.
Yes. You are fully alive, hyper-present, processing massive amounts of data from the real world, but you are completely untethered from anxiety. Returning home means turning inward to this exact state of sahaj, away from the external noise.
A spinning top, perfectly balanced. It completely dismantles my idea of peace as just passivity. I mean, to maintain that kind of perfectly vertical spin requires an immense amount of focused energy.
It does. You are still operating in the friction of the real world, but your internal center of gravity has been perfectly calibrated.
So if this internal home of sahaj is so wonderful, and it's our factory setting, why do we ever leave it? Like, what knocks the top over?
That is the million-dollar question, and the guru anticipates that exact question, which is why the language of the Shabad transitions rather sharply here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It moves from this tranquility into what sounds like honestly the language of statecraft and warfare.
It really does. It says, "In bliss and ecstasy, sing his glorious praises. By this celestial tune, you shall acquire your everlasting kingdom. The Lord himself has eliminated your enemies, and your misfortunes are past."
Okay, wait, we just talked about ultimate peace and returning home, but now we're talking about enemies and building a kingdom. That sounds like a battlefield. Aren't those contradictory?
It absolutely sounds like a battlefield, but you have to realize the guru is mapping an internal geography here. These aren't external physical enemies with swords.
So it's not talking about rival nations or, like, my annoying neighbor who mows his lawn at 6 a.m.
No, definitely not your neighbor. The guru is diagnosing the human psychological condition. The enemies are internal. It's our own unchecked ego, our endless desires, greed, and anger.
Oh, I see.
These are the internal forces that actively strike at the spinning top. They are what drag the mind away from peace and cause the wobble.
So these enemies are essentially cognitive distortions.
Exactly. When you look at this through the lens of modern psychology, the text is discussing executive function and emotional regulation. As long as your ego or your desires are dictating your reactions, you are a hostage in your own mind.
You're reacting to external stimuli rather than ruling your internal response. So the everlasting kingdom represents achieving absolute sovereignty over your own cognition.
That is spot on. When the internal enemies are removed, you rule your inner world. An everlasting kingdom isn't a plot of land, it's self-mastery.
That's a staggering way to reframe it. If my boss criticizes me and my ego flares up and ruins my entire week, I am not sovereign. My ego is occupying the throne.
Right, and that lack of sovereignty is what causes the spiritual misfortunes the text mentions. A misfortune isn't just a run of bad luck. It's the suffering we manufacture for ourselves when we let our internal enemies dictate our actions.
Okay, I get it. Understanding that we need executive control over our ego is highly rational. But actually executing that control when, say, your brain is vibrating at Mach 2 on a Tuesday afternoon is a completely different challenge.
Oh, totally. It's way easier said than done.
Right, because acknowledging the internal invaders doesn't magically evict them. The text points out the symptom perfectly, though, when it says, "Your running and rushing around is ended."
Yes. That running and rushing is basically the defining physiological state of the 21st century.
It's the modern-day hamster wheel. The doom scrolling, the rat race, this constant nagging feeling of needing to be everywhere at once. It's the wobble of the top turning into a chaotic spiral.
Exactly. And you cannot just think your way out of that kind of momentum.
No, you can't. It's like, imagine being an untethered astronaut who has slipped off the hull of a space station.
Oh, terrifying.
Right, you are just spinning out in the dark void of zero gravity. You can flail your arms, you can yell, you can internally command yourself to stop spinning, but physics dictates that without external friction, you just keep rotating. Willpower alone cannot stop the spin.
You have to physically reach out and grab a handrail.
Exactly. So how does someone actually stop this momentum? How do we remain firm and steady, as the text commands, without wavering? What's our handrail?
Well, the Shabbat does not leave us spinning in the dark. It provides the exact solution. The text commands the listener to take the guru's word as your support.
Take the guru's word as your support. Okay, let's break down the actual mechanism of that. How does an ancient text serve as a handrail for a modern, okko-stimulated nervous system?
It acts as a deliberate cognitive pattern interrupt. The guru's word is the foundational anchor. When your mind is running and rushing, it's usually caught in a dopamine loop of desire or an anxiety loop.
So true.
Taking the guru's word as your support isn't just about, passive reading. It is the active, repetitive tethering of your consciousness to a divine, immovable truth. You don't achieve steadiness just by sheer willpower.
Right, so when the ego starts whispering that you aren't successful enough or anxiety tells you the future's a disaster, you don't argue with the anxiety. You grab the handrail.
You grab the handrail. You anchor yourself to this divine wisdom, which allows you to stand firm on steady feet. It forcibly brings the aimless spiritual wandering to a halt.
It's about shifting your reliance. You abandon the fragile, exhaustible resource of your own willpower, and you physically clip your tether into a support system that has been structurally engineered to hold your weight.
I love that. Yes. And once that spin stops, the transformation of the internal landscape is profound.
Which brings us to a fascinating question about what fills the vacuum. If we successfully grab the handrail and the running and rushing stops, and the ego is silenced, what happens next?
The result is definitely not a neutral, sterile emptiness.
Yeah, I'd imagine if you clear out a house, it's just an empty house. But here's where it gets really interesting. The joyful imagery just floods the later part of the Shabbat. It says, in your home there is rejoicing. The musical instruments continually play.
This is where we circle back to sahaj not being a state of anesthesia. It isn't a lonely, silent home.
It's not sensory deprivation at all. It's like sensory alignment. You're experiencing an internal symphony, this celestial tune.
The musical instruments continually playing is such a magnificent metaphor. When a musical instrument is perfectly tuned, it produces resonance. When it is out of tune, it produces dissonance and noise.
Right, just static.
Exactly. But when your mind is finally cleared of the dissonance of ego and desire, it naturally resonates with the frequency of the creator. It's a radiant glory. You don't need a promotion or a purchase or external validation to hear the music.
You're just tuned into the frequency rather than fighting the static.
Exactly. But there is one final critical piece to this architecture that the guru introduces at the very end. The text synthesizes the entire process in the final stanza, saying, "All beings belong to him. He himself transforms them."
And it concludes with, "The Creator Lord has worked a wondrous miracle."
A wondrous miracle. Those words carry immense weight.
They do. And honestly, they introduce a bit of tension for me. I mean, we just spent this entire deep dive mapping out the rigorous effort required to achieve this state.
We did.
You have to recognize the internal enemies, fight for sovereignty over your mental kingdom, actively reach out and grab the handrail of the guru's word to stop the spin. That sounds like a massive amount of self-directed effort.
It is a lot of effort.
But then the text concludes by saying, the Creator transforms them, and it is a wondrous miracle. Doesn't attributing it all to divine intervention kind of negate the effort we just talked about?
It doesn't negate the effort at all. It contextualizes it.
Yeah.
This is the eternal tension between human effort and divine grace. The text is making it explicitly clear that you cannot just life hack your way into sahaj.
Right. You can't just put achieve everlasting kingdom on your Tuesday to-do list.
Exactly. You must make the effort to grab the handrail. You must choose to turn away from the ego. But the actual alchemy, the fundamental transformation of an anxious, heavy human mind into a perfectly balanced, rejoicing entity is an act of profound grace.
Wow. So you prepare the internal house. You sweep out the enemies.
Yes. But the lighting of the fire, the music that fills the halls, that is a wondrous miracle worked by the Creator. It's a profound shift initiated by grace, fundamentally transforming the soul's orientation from outward chaos to inward rejoicing.
It's a partnership. We provide the discipline to grip the anchor, and the Creator provides the miracle of actual transformation. That actually takes a tremendous amount of pressure off the individual.
It does, which requires humility, right? Acknowledging that the ultimate transformation is a miracle ensures that once you achieve that inner peace, your ego doesn't immediately sneak back in the back door to take credit for it.
That is incredibly sharp. The moment you say, look at how peaceful and sovereign I made myself, the spinning top instantly starts wobbling again. The enemies are back inside the house.
Precisely. The awareness of grace is what seals the perimeter of the kingdom.
This has been such a journey today. Let's take a macro look at the incredible map we've laid out. We started with the realization that our chaotic, exhausted grind is a malfunction. And we are being actively recalled to our inner home of sahaj, that state of dynamic spiritual poise.
Yeah, that perfect balance.
To return there, we have to conquer our internal enemies, like ego and desire, to claim an everlasting internal kingdom. And to stop our aimless running and rushing, we have to firmly grasp the handrail of the Guru's word. When we do, we don't find an empty void. We find a home resonating with a celestial tune brought about by the wondrous miracle of grace.
It really is a flawless psychological and spiritual blueprint.
It is. And as we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to examine in your own life. If we connect this to the bigger picture, consider the external physics of that perfectly balanced spinning top. Tomorrow, when you find yourself caught up in the inevitable running and rushing of your daily obligations, pause and ask yourself, what would it take in that exact moment to tune out the external noise, listen for that celestial tune, and mentally return to your own unshakable inner home?
That is such a powerful thought to end on, because true internal peace isn't just about you. Your centered gravity can actually become the handrail for someone else who is spinning out in zero gravity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. It's always a privilege to explore these profound concepts with you. Until next time, keep a firm grip on the handrail and find your way back home.